I meant to get like 2 videos out in December and 2 videos out in November as well, but I have not yet re-sparked my passion for video making, and of course I do love producing videos and doing the art for them, but I'm sort of out of ideas. And I've been suffering from so much constant art block that it is not even funny. So, if you have any ideas or things that you'd like to see me do, maybe hit me up in the comments. I read all of them and reply to the ones I can, so any help is appreciated. Anyways, hi everyone, it's me, Barry, and we are so back. I know I say that at the beginning of almost everything, but I hope I mean it this time. A little over a year ago now is when I released the video that kickstarted this little community that I have, and in that video I redesigned 4 of my favorite old OCs. I made a part 2 of this a while back, which I did enjoy, but it didn't really scratch the same itch as the first one did, so here we are. What a better way to celebrate a year of Zomberry than another old OCs video. I used my first 4 OCs for this one: Connie, Corn, Jingles, and Stormy... Gloom. His name was either Stormy or Gloomy. I'm not sure. I don't remember. He had 2 of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I created these 4 back in 2017 along with another character who will be absent from this video, Delilah. Delilah recently got a small redesign and her story hasn't changed at all and has no means for changing, so I decided not to add her onto the workload. I'm happy with how she is now, and maybe I'll give her a refresh in following videos. But right now, she's pretty good. The other 4 though, need some serious help. Before we get into this though, if you want to support me, please check out my Ko-Fi or Etsy below for commissions, donations, memberships, and my shop. Any amount of support goes a mile for a creator like me, and even if you aren't able to help out financially, seeing your comments and likes motivate me just as much knowing you are all out there. Anyways, with that all out of the way, let's get into the video. First up, we have Connie. Connie was originally a character I made after watching No Evil by Betsy Lee. Do any of you remember that? It was so good. I loved that so much. The episode where they sang Ain't No Grave is what made me love country music. I'm being completely dead serious right now. However, saying that makes me feel really old because I was really young when that came out. In No Evil, there are 3 monkey characters who show off the see no, speak no, and hear no evil rules. And I was really inspired by that when I had watched the web series for the first time, and made Connie and her 2 twin brothers, Levi and Levin. Great naming conventions, young me. You did so good. She was specifically the Hear No Evil, which I considered the coolest, and I have to admit, I had pretty good taste. Mentioning that this girl was based off of No Evil, though, you probably know where this is going to go with the other character, Corn, which I will get into it very soon. Don't you worry. For now, let's talk about Connie. In her original design, I had tons of patterns and overwhelming clashing colors that don't work all too well together, and looking at her now, she seems to have more of a Lolita type fashion despite the fact 11-year-old me would have not known what that was. In later renditions of her, she kept those themes, lost them. She either leaned too far into the girly side or too far into the tomboyish side, but this time around, I decided to embrace it. I wanted to go with something like coquette. I think that's what it's called. I'm in horribly uncharted waters here without a boat, if I'm being honest. I knew I wanted to keep the pinks and the whites and make it frilly to complement her old self. Lots of bows and cute details. Now, you've probably realized the biggest change. She is no longer an animal. I made her in a time where almost all of my characters had animal characteristics: ears, tails, feet, fur, you know the drill. And while I still love animal characters, I don't make them as often unless in a specifically fantasy-like setting like me and Charlie's World of Thrindane, that I talked about in the last redesign video as well. This group doesn't exist in a world like that. They exist in a world just like ours. To my knowledge, they lived in an unnamed city in an unnamed state somewhere in America, so for my brain's sake, they are in New York, attending college. Woo! Yay! No matter how old I get, I'm afraid I will always revisit that trope. I don't know much about the story yet, but Connie is getting some personality changes. She's always been a bit of a brute. Her old self would have been closer to Taiga from Toradora than anything else. And while I think it'd be funny to keep some of those old traits, I'd also like to add some to balance it out a little bit more. So now, Connie is from out of state. She grew up down south like me. But unlike myself, she showed a lot of gifts when it came to the academics, excelling in her studies even when she was really, really young. When she graduated high school, the most logical thing to do was apply to various Ivy Leagues around the country, but her family didn't have the money for these big schools, and even with scholarships, she wouldn't be able to afford a full ride. So she got a minimum wage job and went to a year of community college, hoping and dreaming for the best. Connie never really got to go to a big Ivy League, I think, but she does find an affordable law school in New York City. It's nothing close to her dream college, but it's her dream city, so she's halfway there. When she's about 20, she heads up to New York on her own. It's a new city with new people and a new life for Connie, and she's excited for it. She accepts an ad for a roommate position in the West Side and goes on her way. Overall, I really love how Connie's design came out. I think she means business, but is also really, really silly when you get to know her personality-wise. I love how she looks now, and I hope you do too. As I mentioned before, bringing up No Evil reminded me that Connie was essentially a copycat design from one of the characters in that web series, which made me remember, so was Korn, but in a so much worse sense. Down to the name, he is a copy of the character Korn from the show, a timid, good-hearted corn snake, who I heavily related to as a child. It's really embarrassing to think about how much I copied when I was younger, but I feel the need to stress that this was in 2017, maybe even 2016, and I was like 11 or 10. It really made me think about the fact that a lot of my old OCs are plagiarized. Maybe I should go over them all eventually. It's a mess and a topic for another time. Anyways, Korn was always supposed to be a me character, I think. I often wished to be him, or look like him, or have his life, so I wanted to reflect that with the new design and gave him some clothes I would wear now. I don't really know everything about why I chose what I did for his design. It's pretty similar to the last one. He's tall, he's blonde, he has earthy tones. I guess he leans away from the whole 2017 Tumblr flower crown boy of his original aesthetic, which I am happy about. Do not get me wrong. Now, for the story, Korn grew up in New York City himself. Growing up in Harlem with his very large family who crammed into a 3-bedroom apartment. They all essentially lived on top of each other. He shared a room with all of his brothers, one of which being his twin brother Clay. Korn never really loved the big city. He was an anxiety-ridden teenager who hated the noise and the crowd of New York, but when he got older, he opted to not leave like a handful of his other family members did. Maybe he was too scared to move away from his mom, or maybe it was because New York City was his home. It was all he's ever known, and he wasn't too keen on warming up to another place. Either way, Korn stayed home. He worked part-time with his dad at their bodega right underneath their apartment, and never strayed too far from his block. He really had no plans on leaving it. That was until his parents answered an ad in the newspaper for roommates in the West Side. When he found out, he nearly had an attack. But after a few days of research about the neighborhood and a point-by-point plan on how he would move in and where he would work, he started liking the idea a little bit more. It was scary. He had never planned on leaving his family house this soon, but it was also really exciting. Thinking about being an adult on his own was getting him a little bit hyped. His mom helped him pack, and about a week and a half later, he got a cab to the building and moved in. I think you can all see where this is going, right? He gets there, only one of the roommates is there, and they have a talk and hit it off instantly despite being socially awkward. It's a whole vision. You guys have to hear me out on it. Come on now. Overall, I love how Korn came out. I don't think Korn is his real name, obviously. Probably a nickname his family gave him during his time in their apartment. So if you have any name suggestions, let me know. I'd prefer a Spanish name that starts with a C if you can help it, but really, anything would be good. On to the next one. Originally named Stormy, or Gloomy, or something, this guy was my first ever Edgefest sort of character. They were supposed to be a soft boy with a sad heart, but very quickly did they fade into obscurity. Their spotlight was taken by the other characters in my first group of OCs. They have since had a name change. I landed on Declan, and I don't exactly know what inspired them originally. I made them shortly after the last character in the group, Jingles. They were made to be her boyfriend at the time, but besides that, Declan didn't have all too much in the means of story. I don't even think that they had a surname back when I first made them. So if you can't tell, it is seriously time for them to get some updates. I decided to keep the blue hair and reference their comfy cozy attire in the original design by making their main outfit pajamas. Besides that, I don't think all too much has changed. I have to be honest, out of all three of the designs, Declan's was definitely my least favorite. It's not like I don't like it just doesn't hit as hard as the others did, and I think it could have used a second pass. But it is partially my fault that it came out like this. It was the last design that I did for everyone, and I rushed it because I was so ready to be done and focus on other things, and I got what I served, you know? I cannot complain. I have, however, written them up a new backstory, just like everyone else. In Declan's case, they're from Seattle, so all the way on the opposite side of the country. They had a decent upbringing, they grew up a little bit poor, but their family always got by. I think they may have had a loss in their family while Declan was in their mid-teens, maybe a parent or a sibling, and it sort of reverberated through their once really happy house and brought everyone down. Bad. And their family couldn't really pull themselves up from it. Time passed, and family members moved, and eventually it was Declan's turn too. Their parents were going to move further down west, probably Southern California or Arizona, and Declan wasn't too big of a fan of the desert or heat, and decided maybe it was their time to spread their wings. They were a musician, playing bass and guitar, and wanted to pursue their talents as a possible career in the future. That's when an opportunity arose. Their online friend, or maybe even possibly girlfriend at this time, messages them. She's looking for roommates in the west side of Manhattan. And Declan, with nothing but their guitar case and their savings from the last few years of part-time work, pack up and head across the country to start a new life in New York City. Now it's time for the final character, the one you have all probably been waiting to hear about, Jingles. I originally made Jingles in 2017 while on a trip to Disney with my family. I'd come home every night from the park and think up delusional stories about her and write them down in my sketchbook before passing out from a long day of theme parking. I made her when I was in my first ever Gravity Falls phase, and it inspired this horrendous art style of mine that I'm not even sure why it looks like this. Editing Barry here, I couldn't find proof of this art style besides this horribly edited My OCs and Movie Star Planet picture that I made in 2017, so enjoy. I don't know. But either way, Jingles was this little ram girl who grew up in New York and lived in a high-rise apartment. She was happy, kind, and a very Pinkie Pie type character, if you know what I mean. First, I decided to rename her Junka, because I love the name and I think it really fits her. Junka grew up outside of the United States, living outside of and around Tokyo, Japan until she was about 8 years old, when her family moved to America for work. Her dad was American and originally had come to Japan for business, where he met her mom, and they had their little family for a good while, but eventually he needed to go back and everyone saw bright horizons and went with him. She was an only child and got spoiled due to her dad having a steady, well-paying job and lived in the heart of Manhattan, where she fell in love with the city. She was already used to big cities when she came to New York, considering she spent a good chunk of her childhood in Tokyo. So she fit almost right in. As she grew up, she just fell more and more in love with NYC. She had a typical upbringing, but surprisingly not too many friends. People thought she was a little bit too excitable or weird, so she spent a majority of her school years on online chat rooms and games where she met a person who lived in Oregon. They hit it off right away, getting along over the fact they were both different. They had known each other for nearly 5 years when Junka offers them a roommate spot in her new apartment. They're the first to say yes. Junka gets calls from 2 other people, Connie and Corn, and after months of planning, she moves into a new apartment with 2 new people and an old friend, all ready to have a brave new life together. Overall, I love Junka's new design. I think she's 100% my favorite. She's just so cute. I love her. So, that's it. And I hope you guys like everyone. I think this story has a lot of potential for a silly comic or something like that. It would be fun to write 4 freshly 19 and 20-year-olds traversing through adulthood together in a new place. The story itself definitely needs a little bit of tweaking just to make it flow together a little bit better, but for now, I think it works. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more from me, my social links are all down below. Have a great day, Happy New Year, and bye-bye!